The bridge at Black Hollow. There's an old bridge out past Black Hollow, hidden deep within the forest. Most people don't know it exists, and those who do make a point to avoid it. The bridge is said to be cursed, a place where people go in but never come back out. Over the years, hikers and travelers alike have disappeared after crossing it, and only their faint, echoing cries remain. Of course, the legend was enough to capture the attention of David and his friends, Sarah and Mike. They were the type who loved anything that promised a thrill, and the idea of finding the bridge at Black Hollow was irresistible. They set out one autumn afternoon, armed with flashlights and phones, determined to prove the old stories wrong. As they walked deeper into the woods, the air grew colder, and the trees began to close in around them. The forest seemed darker here, even though it was still daylight. Shadows stretched across the path, and an eerie silence settled over everything, as if even the birds were afraid to make a sound. "Are you sure we're going the right way?" Sarah asked, glancing around uneasily. David checked the map on his phone. "Yeah, it should be just up ahead. The map says there's a small creek right by the bridge." But as they continued, the path grew narrower, twisting and winding in confusing ways. Soon, they found themselves at the edge of a fog-covered clearing, and there it was, the bridge at Black Hollow. It was old, its wooden planks gray and splintered with age. Thick vines had crept over its railings, wrapping around the posts like grasping fingers. The creek below was barely visible through the fog, but they could hear the faint sound of water trickling below. Despite the bright afternoon light, the bridge itself was cloaked in shadow, as if the sun didn't dare touch it. "Well, we found it," Mike said, trying to sound confident but failing. "Should we cross?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes fixed on the shadowy bridge. "I don't know, guys. This place feels wrong." David shrugged, hiding his own unease. "Come on, it's just an old bridge. The stories are probably just meant to scare people. We'll go across, take some pictures, and be on our way." With a nervous glance at each other, they stepped onto the bridge. The wood creaked beneath their feet, and every step seemed to echo unnaturally, as if the sound were swallowed up by the fog. Halfway across, a strange sensation washed over them, a feeling of heaviness, like an invisible weight pressing down on their shoulders. "Do you feel that?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yeah," David replied, though he didn't want to admit it. The air felt thick, suffocating, and his chest tightened with each step. As they neared the center of the bridge, they heard it, a faint, whispering sound coming from the mist below. It was so soft that they couldn't make out the words, but there was something familiar in the tone. It sounded like crying. "Is someone down there?" Mike leaned over the edge, peering into the foggy depths. The whispers grew louder, and now they could hear voices calling, overlapping each other in a strange, haunting chorus. "Help, please, don't leave us." They all froze, their blood turning to ice. The voices sounded like people, a group, maybe, all calling out in desperation, their words tangled and broken. "Who's there?" David called, trying to keep his voice steady. The whispering stopped, replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to press in from all sides. Then, from the fog, a figure appeared. It was barely visible, just a dark shape slowly moving toward them, shrouded in mist. "Let's go," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. But David was rooted in place, unable to tear his eyes away from the figure. As it drew closer, the outline became clearer, a man, thin and gaunt, with empty, hollow eyes and a mouth twisted into a silent scream. "Run," Mike muttered, pulling on David's arm. "We have to get out of here." But David couldn't move. The figure had reached the edge of the bridge now, its hollow eyes fixed on him. Its face was pale, almost translucent, and there were deep shadows under its eyes, as if it hadn't slept in centuries. Slowly, it raised a bony hand, pointing directly at David. "Why did you come here?" it whispered, its voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "Why did you cross?" David felt his heart hammering in his chest, but he couldn't answer, his throat dry with terror. The figure took another step forward, and then another, until it was standing right in front of him, its cold, empty gaze piercing into his soul. "Do you want to stay?" it asked, its voice soft, almost tender. "No!" Sarah screamed, grabbing David's arm and yanking him back. The spell broke, and David stumbled, finally able to move. They turned and ran, racing back across the bridge as fast as they could, the planks creaking beneath them. But as they reached the other side, they heard footsteps behind them, slow, deliberate footsteps, echoing across the wood. David glanced back and felt a surge of panic. The figure was following them, moving at an unnatural pace, its hollow eyes fixed on them. And behind it, more shapes were emerging from the fog, shadowy figures with empty faces, reaching out with twisted hands. "Run!" Mike shouted, but the fog was thickening, closing in around them, and the forest seemed darker than before. The path back was twisted and unfamiliar, as if the woods themselves were trying to trap them. They ran through the dense forest, branches clawing at their skin, the whispers following them, growing louder and louder until it was all they could hear. "Come back, stay with us." Finally, they broke through the trees and stumbled onto the main road. They looked back, panting, but the forest was silent, the bridge hidden somewhere in the mist. The whispers faded, leaving only the rustling of leaves in the wind. The three of them didn't speak as they walked back to town, each lost in their own thoughts. But later that night, as David lay in bed, he heard it again, the faint, whispering voices, calling to him from the darkness. "Come back, you belong here." The whispers followed him, haunting his dreams, filling his mind with the empty, hollow eyes of the figures on the bridge. And every night, he felt the urge to return, to cross the bridge once more, even though he knew that if he did, he would never come back. For more videos, please subscribe and like.